When a desperate command leaves Voyager stranded in an unknown region of space once again, Captain Janeway must face the weight of leadership, the fear of the unknown, and the fragile hope of bringing her crew home. Hey everyone, this is TH Stories 80, where we narrate fanfiction audiobooks. Now we begin Chapter 2 of Voyager Lost. Let's dive in. Federation Starship Voyager, unknown region of space. A minute later. B'Elanna, Janeway spoke into her comm badge while standing next to Paris. His expression and the information on the helm console told her they had very little data about their location. A diagnostic on the helm had already been run, but Janeway wanted a more comprehensive one. I need a complete diagnostic for every sensor on the ship. On it, Captain. I'll need at least an hour, the chief engineer replied before turning back to the warp core, directing ongoing repairs. She then ordered several engineers under her assistant, Lieutenant Carey, to begin diagnostics on Voyager's sensor array. Turning to a few others, she instructed them to start sealing plasma leaks on decks 4 through 6. Meanwhile, in the infirmary, Kes stood beside the unconscious Neelix, whose body lay under a scanner, while the doctor worked to repair his badly burned arm. Noticing the worry in the occupant's eyes, the doctor glanced over his shoulder as he used a device to regenerate the nerves in Neelix's arm. Captain, I'd like Lieutenant Paris to assist me in Sickbay, the doctor said amid the chaos around him, injured crew groaning in pain, others unconscious. He noted the bruises on Kess's arms and the soil stains on her face and uniform. He's on the way, Doctor, the captain responded just as the doctor handed the nerve regenerator to Kess to keep her occupied. He gave her quick instructions, saying, "His nerves are already regenerating. Once they're fully restored, we'll use a dermal regenerator, and Mr. Neelix will be as good as new." Kess nodded, her expression still anxious, and began slowly sweeping the device over the length of Neelix's burnt arm. Confident that Neelix was in good hands, the doctor hurried to the next seriously injured crew member. While waiting for Paris to arrive, the doctor set a broken arm on another patient. A few hectic minutes later, the sickbay doors hissed open and Paris rushed in. The doctor immediately began giving instructions, pausing only to tell the less injured crew to clear space for the critical patients. With a brief sigh, he glanced back at Kes, who now had her hand resting gently on Neelix's forehead. The doctor approached as she informed him that she had finished regenerating the nerves. He checked the scanner and nodded. Neelix's nerve damage had been completely repaired. Now it was time to regenerate the skin. The doctor retrieved a cone-shaped device from another console and handed it to Kes. After a few more instructions, he stepped back, watching as she carefully swept the device over Neelix's arm. A few moments later, he patted her on the back and asked her to use the nerve and dermal regenerators on the crew members with minor burns. Kes nodded and turned toward the others while the doctor moved quickly to the next patient. The soft murmur of the injured filled the room, blending with the steady hum of medical instruments as the crew worked tirelessly to provide the best care possible. Over the next 2 hours, B'Elanna insisted she needed more time, an additional hour after the initial one, since engineers had discovered minor damage to parts of the sensor array. They believed the damage was caused by the mysterious subspace radiation. In the meantime, the scene on the bridge was deceptively calm. Janeway paced the floor with her hands clasped behind her back, while Chakotay watched her from his chair. She had been staring out the view screen for nearly an hour, and he could feel the tension in the air, so thick it could be cut with a knife. He could only guess how Janeway felt at this moment, probably just as he did, nervous about where they were in the galaxy and how long it would take to get home. Were they even further away in the Delta Quadrant? The only thing they could do was wait for the external sensors to come back online. At the end of the 2 hours, Janeway stopped pacing when B'Elanna contacted her with good news. All sensors were back online and they would be regaining warp power within another 4 hours. The red-haired captain exhaled in relief. Tuvok and Kim exchanged a glance, relief flickering across the ensign's face, while the Vulcan merely raised an eyebrow before returning to his console. Chakotay noticed some of the tension ease from Janeway's shoulders as he stood and prepared to tell Kim to run full scan. Just then, the operations console began beeping wildly. Chakotay and Janeway froze, watching the confusion spread across Kim's face as he studied the readings. "It's not possible," Kim whispered. Chakotay felt his heart rate climb at the tone in the young man's voice. Kim quickly initiated a diagnostic and called down to engineering to ask if the sensors had been checked before coming online. "I'm seeing it too, Harry," came B'Elanna's stunned reply. The implication was clear. The external sensors were functioning perfectly. She stared at the beeping display in front of her, soon joined by Seska, whose eyes widened at what she saw. "Ensign?" Janeway demanded from the bridge as she and Chakotay rushed to Kim's side. Down in engineering, B'Elanna and Seska exchanged a look, then turned back to the screen in disbelief. Once the sensors were reactivated, they ran an automated sweep, including a quantum scan, Kim said, his voice trembling as he looked up at his commanding officers. "The scans show we're in a different quantum reality." "A different reality," Janeway repeated, shaking her head. "Could it be?" she wondered. "Did I really send us into another reality? I gave the order to throw the ship into that anomaly. What have I done?" Suddenly, another alert sounded from Kim's console, indicating a secondary scan had completed. The expression on his face shifted again, this time to something closer to shock. "Mr. Kim, what have you found?" asked Tuvok, standing beside Chakotay with his hands clasped behind his back. Chakotay glanced at Janeway, whose pale face betrayed her unease. Kim swallowed hard. We may have to reset our chronometers," he said. Janeway and Chakotay exchanged a confused look before turning back to him. After running a scan of the background radiation and comparing it to our own, the computer extrapolated our previous readings and matched them to the quantum frequency in this reality and... "Ensign," Janeway interrupted, raising a hand to steady him. "Calm down." Kim took a breath and blurted, "We're in the past." Janeway stared at him, her mouth slightly open. "Excuse me?" Chakotay asked, shaking his head. "What do you mean, the past?" "Approximately speaking, we're in the year 2015, Kim said quietly, stepping back. Janeway moved to his console to verify the data herself. The readings confirmed it. She looked up at Chakotay and Tuvok, her heart sinking. Tuvok's family, her crew's lives, their entire future. None of it existed here. Not yet. Eyes full of regret, Janeway turned away. "I'll be in my ready room," she said softly. "I want all senior staff in the briefing room in an hour. Until then, continue searching for the anomaly." She walked past her officers in silence, exhaustion etched into her face. The doors to her ready room closed behind her. Inside, the space was in disarray. A loose panel hung from the ceiling. Her coffee mug lay dented on the floor, and the carpet was stained with black liquid. The couch cushions in her ready room's lounge were strewn across the floor. "Computer," she ordered hoarsely, "log the ready room." The computer chirped in acknowledgement. Back on the bridge, Kim continued to stare at the digits flashing on his display. 2015. Around him, the crew exchanged uneasy looks, some filled with worry, others with quiet despair. A sharp ache bloomed in Kim's chest as he thought of his parents, his friends, his life on Earth. If their readings were correct, those people hadn't even been born yet. Everyone they knew and loved was gone. All their lives had changed. Again. In her ready room, Janeway climbed the 2 steps to the small lounge area, picked up one of the fallen cushions, and placed it back on the couch. She sank down onto the couch in silence, her hands covering her mouth. She was exhausted, defeated. All she wanted was to lie down somewhere and cry. But she couldn't. She was the captain. She didn't have that luxury. "Take a moment," she told herself. "Breathe, regain control, then get back out there and find your crew a way home." "Computer," she said finally. "Captain's log," she continued, her voice cracking. The system chimed, ready to record. Janeway needed to speak, needed to release the frustration and fear that had been building inside her. "I've done it again," she began softly, her gaze drifting toward the stars beyond the wide viewport. According to her sensors, We passed through an anomaly that tore through the time-space continuum. We now find ourselves in the past of another quantum reality. She gave a short, humorless laugh. It would be the start of a very bad joke if it weren't true. It was hard enough fighting our way through the Delta Quadrant to get home, but now we're in the past of another reality, searching for the anomaly that brought us here. I want this to be a fight we can win. I want to take my crew home, to our reality, to our future. Her voice trembled, but she pushed through it. Everyone we know hasn't been born yet. Starfleet doesn't exist. The Federation doesn't exist. We don't even know what region of space we're in. She paused, regaining her composure. I'm hoping we find a way home. In the meantime, while we get the warp drive back online, we'll keep searching for the anomaly. We have to find it. We must. Engineering room, USS Voyager at that same time. Down in engineering, while Kim was explaining to Janeway that they were in the past of another quantum reality, Seska was livid after she peeked at the screen showing B'Elanna the same data Kim had been seeing. The chief engineer raised her hands and asked Seska, who was pointing furiously at the screen, to calm down. However, the truth was already out. B'Elanna looked past Seska and saw several of the other officers, including Lindsay Ballard, staring at their own monitors before turning toward her. Her heart sank when she saw their faces. It was as if the world had ended for them. That bit, Seska hissed in anger as she stepped toward B'Elanna. Before Seska could finish, B'Elanna snapped in a low, harsh whisper, "Don't even say what you were about to say." The Klingon knew that the Bajoran woman, her fellow Maquis, was about to call Captain Janeway a bitch, and there was no way she was allowing that kind of disrespect in her engineering room. B'Elanna straightened and took a step forward, closing the distance between them. "That's our captain you're talking about. And you've seen the data," Seska shouted, pointing at the screen to her left. "Lieutenant," growled B'Elanna. Seska immediately clamped her mouth shut, realizing she had gone too far. "Report to your quarters," B'Elanna ordered. "B'Elanna, report to your quarters," the Klingon hissed, her eyes blazing. Seska stared back, wide-eyed. She had never seen B'Elanna this angry before. "That's where you'll be confined until you calm down," B'Elanna continued. And if I ever hear that kind of disrespect again," B'Elanna said in a low, dangerous tone, "you'll be reported to Tuvok and spend time in the brig. Is that clear?" "B'Elanna, have I made myself clear, Lieutenant?" "Yes," Seska said quickly, nodding before looking away. "Permission to be dismissed?" "You're dismissed," B'Elanna replied quietly. She watched Seska leave, the doors hissing shut behind her, before turning to the rest of the engineering crew. "I know everyone's seen the same data," she began. "And yes, it seems we're in a little bit of trouble, but we'll take it one step at a time. All the sensor arrays are back online, and hopefully we'll find the anomaly that brought us here and use it to get back home." She scanned the room, meeting the uneasy gazes of her staff. "In the meantime, I want the warp core back up within the next few hours. I want us to stay busy." B'Elanna sighed and rubbed her forehead in frustration before continuing. "I know what all of you are thinking. I'm thinking the same thing too. I want to go home. So we do everything we can to help our captain get us there. Now, get back to work." As the team returned to their stations, the hum of machinery filled the room once again. B'Elanna exhaled, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly. Then Chakotay's voice came over her badge communicator. The captain wanted the senior staff in the briefing room in an hour. B'Elanna straightened, pushed the wariness aside. "Understood," she muttered, turning back toward the core as the light from the plasma conduits flickered across her face. Briefing room an hour later. Janeway could feel the tension in the room as she stared at the doctor, whose face appeared on the screen to her right. She then looked around the dark green-hued table at Paris, B'Elanna, Chakotay, Kes, now dressed in fresh clothes, Tuvok, and Neelix, who was already fully healed from his injury. All of them, except for the doctor, were seated around the table in front of her. Janeway took a deep breath, leaned forward, and placed her hands on the table's surface and spoke. "Neelix? I'm healed, Captain." the Talaxian said, nodding as he showed everyone his fully recovered arm. Although I have to say, the kitchen's seen better days. As our morale officer, Janeway replied, I need you to do something amazing to keep the crew's spirits up. I know it's a big request, and I'll come up with something, Captain, Neelix said confidently. Janeway nodded, then turned to the doctor. I have some crew members here with scratches and bruises that were easily healed, Captain. The doctor reported from Sickbay, seated behind his desk, while several crew members lay on the biobeds behind him. However, a few sustained broken bones. They'll need a day, at most, before they can return to duty. Thank you, Doctor, Janeway said, taking a deep breath before turning to B'Elanna. The Klingon told her that warp core repairs were still ongoing, and that they would be able to restart the matter-antimatter reaction in 2 to 3 hours. Janeway nodded while Kim added that he had the computer extrapolate the locations of the star maps from their own time to their position in 2015. But even after considering every possible factor, including the fact that we're in a different quantum reality, the computer can't come up with a model that tells us where we are, Kim said. I'm getting the same error at the helm, Captain, Paris added. I can confirm we have no idea where we are. Chakotay leaned back in his seat, staring thoughtfully at the table before speaking. Our scans may not show the location of the anomaly, but we could light it up like a beacon if we extend our warp field outward. The field would, as you say, light it up, B'Elanna said, catching on. And then we could use the deflector to... Well, it could work. Everyone waited for her to continue. After a moment, she looked up at the expectant faces and went on. You could use the deflector dish to pull the tear open while it's tuned to our native quantum frequency. We could open the tear and then fly through. Of course, we'll have to factor in temporal displacement and... Get it done, B'Elanna, Janeway ordered. The Klingon engineer was about to rise when Kes leaned forward, resting her arms on the table. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, as though she was afraid to give voice to the thought they were all avoiding. What if we can't find the breach? What if we can't go back to our reality and our time? It was the same question that had haunted Janeway in her ready room. What would she do if there wasn't a way home? She leaned back in her chair, staring at Kes while the others looked down at the table. They were thinking the same thing. Kes was simply brave enough to ask. The truth was, Janeway didn't know. There were too many factors to consider if they couldn't get back. She turned to Chakotay, who said, Kes has a point, Captain. We need alternatives, and the crew needs to be mentally prepared for the possibility of being stuck in the past. I've considered that possibility, Janeway admitted quietly, folding her hands on the table to keep them from covering her mouth. There's the M-class planet nearby, Paris noted reluctantly. Part of him already felt defeated for even mentioning it. Still, another part of him thought, we'll find a breach. We'll get home. The planet is in a pre-industrial stage of development, Tuvok observed, studying the table. Then he raised his head to meet the captain's gaze. The Prime Directive would apply under ordinary circumstances. However, this is not an ordinary situation. No kidding, B'Elanna muttered, shaking her head. Are we really talking about giving up? Kim asked, leaning forward. No, Janeway said firmly. We are not giving up. I want everything focused on locating that anomaly. It has to be here, even if we can't detect it. Extending the warp field might give us our first clue. Then we'll use the deflector to open the breach and get home to our own reality and our own time. But we also need to face the possibility that we might be stuck here. Tuvok's right, Chakotay said. This isn't an ordinary situation. None of our star maps correspond to this reality. Even if we set a course for Earth, once we regain warp drive, it wouldn't be our Earth. It's in the past. Our arrival would alter their development. And it's not just Earth. It would be the same for Vulcan, Kronos, Okampa, and Talax. Captain, Kes said, leaning forward, the M-class planet could provide food we can harvest and soil samples I can use to start growing fresh supplies again. There is a substantial population, Chakotay noted as he stood and walked to the wall panel. He tapped the LCAR's display, and the planet appeared on the screen. Computer, locate humanoid life signs. 3 population centers appeared on one southern continent, each several miles apart. The rest of the planet, 3 large continents and 4 smaller ones, was devoid of human life. But the greenery, rivers, and oceans suggested plenty of resources for food and water. Then we move to the next step, Chakotay said, turning back to Janeway. We need to search the system for dilithium deposits. Janeway nodded, sighing as she replied, Balana, I want the warp core up and ready. Once that's done, extend the warp field outward toward the breach that brought us here. If we find it, initiate a deflector pulse using our quantum frequency. Hopefully, it will open the breach. In the meantime, Chakotay, you'll lead an OA team to the planet. Take a shuttle to the uninhabited areas and... Captain, Neelix interrupted. May I recommend that the away team visit one of the populated areas instead? I understand there are prime directive concerns, but I've never seen this planet before, and it's not in a Federation database. If we're to gather edible items, we need to know what's safe to eat and what isn't. The best way to find out would be at local markets, if they exist, Kes added. I could ask around. I could say that looks like Kes has already volunteered, Chakotay said with a small chuckle. I want a small away team headed to one of the settlements, Janeway said. Keep phasers, communicators, and tricorders out of sight. I'd like Harry and Kes with me, Captain, Chakotay said. He looked at the 2 of them. Harry, I want you to conduct a sensor sweep of the largest settlement. The more people there are, the easier it'll be to blend in. Then use the data to replicate the local civilian clothes for the 3 of us. Understood, Kim said quietly. He didn't like the idea of going down. It felt like admitting defeat. But it was an order and he had to follow it. The warp core should be back up soon, Janeway said, looking at Chakotay. I want the away team back on Voyager with everything you've gathered by then. Hopefully, we'll have opened the breach by that point. If not, that data will help if, and I mean if, we need to settle in one of the planet's more isolated regions. Janeway nodded once more. I'll make an announcement to the crew. They need to know what's happening. I'll have the sedatives prepared, the doctor deadpanned. Janeway gave a small smile before taking a deep breath. Chakotay, Kes, Harry, you have an away mission. Get to it. You have 2 hours. The rest of you, be ready to head home. But also be prepared for anything. Understood, Tuvok said. Dismissed. To be continued.